Welcome to Ride On, episode 17. I'm James Gross, and I'm joined by my co-host, Julia Thane. Julia, we're a week away from Amsterdam. How you feeling?
I know. I was actually just about to mention that. Not only that we're a week away, but I am feeling good. I'm heading to Amsterdam over the weekend. Going to spend a couple days there, just like adjusting to the time zone difference, also checking out all the different micromobility options. I don't know, James. I think people are getting hyped.
I agree. Julia and I were talking about what kind of workouts we're going to be doing in Amsterdam. Sounds like Julia's into climbing. You want to go to a
Drinking?
climb?
I'm going to be drinking.
Oh,
Yeah.
drinking.
I'm kidding.
Wow.
James is
Yeah,
like 7 a.m. runs. Actually, no, for James, it's 6 a.m. runs, right?
6 a.m.
7 a.m. is late.
Well,
Yeah.
it's going to be, that local 6 a.m. time is going to be rough the first couple of days, though. That's like,
Yeah, good luck.
it's definitely
Good
the
luck.
day before
It's like running at night.
California. Yeah. We've got some announcements. First and foremost, a lot of giveaways going on right now in the world of micromobility and ride review. So go to ridereview.com. We're going to have even more giveaways coming up with the show next week with Micromobility Europe in Amsterdam on June 8th and 9th. So we have some vehicles to talk about today in terms of giveaways. And then also for anyone coming to the show, if you haven't, please download the app for the event, which is Umbrella. So you can go to the App Store on iPhone or Android, and you can download the Brella app, Brella. Put it in the show notes as well. And you'll see there's a bunch of giveaways there as well. Or if you're not going to the event, you can just go to ridereview.com/giveaways and see all of our giveaways coming up. So first and foremost, for the V-Volt giveaway, which was from a couple episodes ago when we had the CEO on, great story, amazing new vehicles coming out actually this summer as well. The V-Volt giveaway of the Sirius vehicle goes to Aaron Ebschi. Congratulations, Aaron. We'll be in touch with you, and you are now the proud owner of a very cool V-Volt Sirius vehicle. Two other giveaways just to mention very quickly, Julia. One is we have the Lectric XB 3.0, a vehicle that we're giving away. They just, as you mentioned last week, they just had their National eBike Day on Tuesday of this week, which is very exciting. Did you ride on Tuesday, by the way, Julia?
I thought about it.
Interesting.
I thought
climbing
really...
too many rocks.
I actually, what happened on Tuesday? I'm not even really sure, but I don't think I rode. I don't think I rode. I did say Happy National eBike Day to somebody though, and that feels like it counts, right?
Yeah, I was very worried about. I was worried about our partnership if I'm basically pulling all the weight and riding and you're not doing any of it. But it sounds like, you participated. So we'll give you
that also,
we'll give you
I didn't say Happy National eBike Day to you, but like in the future, I will do that next
I'd appreciate
May 30th. Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. So shout out to Lectric. We're giving away the XB 3.0 and congratulations on their wonderful National eBike Day. And then we also have our first scooter giveaway, I think, actually ever, with Nui, with the KQ i3, definitely an engineer named that one. They have a scooter giveaway as well that they'll be giving away after the Micromobility Europe show and after the ride of a lifetime, because I know you like that, Julia, or the rave ride we have going on with Dom Whiting on June 9th, which again, just to mention that again, is open to the public. So Friday, 4 p.m. local time in Amsterdam, we'll be doing a DJ ride with Dom Whiting to a bar, which should be a lot of fun. And that's it on my end, Julia. Let's get into the news. What's going on?
Yeah, so James, lots of things going on this week, and I think actually kind of prepping for Micromobility Europe, where even more things are going to be going on, and hopefully will be announced at the conference itself. The biggest news probably of the week, James, is about Ola Electric. So Ola Electric, based out of India, maker of two-wheel electric vehicles, is prepping for an IPO. They are backed by SoftBank, a bunch of other, mucky-mucks, and also just really important investors. Their last valuation, so this was about a year ago, I think 2022, was $5 billion. So like with a B, not with an M, $5 billion. And they're hoping to go for an even higher valuation as they IPO. Just to put in perspective how Ola Electric is doing, they sold 30,000 scooters alone in just April. So that was, I think, their best month on record. They're doing really well, but they're also going to be IPOing during uncertain, I would say, market conditions. So I don't know. What do you think, James? Is this a good time to IPO? Should they reconsider? Is $5 billion enough?
Well, yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I don't think the company's worth $5 billion anymore. Other companies like Ola that we know have been, downsized quite a bit since 2 years ago in some of those profit valuations. I will say though, Ola is different in that they're selling a lot of vehicles versus say some of the other companies that we know that aren't doing good that are in like the shared micromobility space. The other thing, as you just mentioned, is like Ola sells the amount of vehicles they sell is like an order of magnitude more than what you would see in U.S. vehicle makers or really any global electric vehicle car makers. So yeah, I think they should go public. I think the CEO who we've actually is going to be right on hopefully pretty soon here. We talked with some folks over at Ola last week, and he agreed to be on the show, and hopefully on Oliver's podcast too. But yeah, I think they should go public, and I think this is a very good example of company shipping vehicles at the pace that we've like almost never seen before for any vehicle company. So yeah, let's get it out there. And then of course, when they start reporting on a quarterly basis, that would be really interesting to be able to see in the public market.
Yeah. I mean, to your point though, about, frothy valuations, at the same time as Ola Electric is considering going public, Bird's stock fell 11% after the company announced a reverse stock split, which I kind of forget. What's a reverse stock split again?
So a reverse stock split is when you take the number of shares and you basically, you multiply it, or you take them away to make the price go up. So the problem for Bird and other companies that are public right now is their stock has fallen so low that certain exchanges like the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange will delist you because you're effectively a penny stock, and you look like a penny stock, and they don't want penny stocks on their exchange. And so they'll do one reverse stock split to try to get the price of their stock up. Again, it's not actually up; it's just the share numbers change. But yeah, Bird does not look good for Bird right now in terms of being in a public market in a what I'd call a more legitimate exchange. They're most likely headed to a less legitimate exchange if the stock keeps falling.
Interesting. And everybody thought this was a micromobility podcast, but it turns out we're going to be talking about finance and stocks and
this is CNBC
and markets
with Julia and James.
I know, James. You're going to need to get what's the finance equivalent of like the safety hat, like and the safety vest. Like you're going to need to get a new costume and outfit.
Good idea.
So that we can have these conversations. I'm probably not going to be able to wear plaid.
Protect your money.
We'll start making stock tips. So super interesting. I think, James, just to pick up on something that you said before, one of the things that I think this is very much indicative of is like privately owned micromobility versus shared micromobility options. You see Bird continuing to fall. You see some of these other shared micromobility operators continuing to struggle, also looking for acquisitions or mergers, whereas the companies that are doing the privately owned micromobility that are selling direct to consumer or selling through retail seem to be doing much better. So I think, again, like this is a drum I will continue to beat, but I do see a lot of innovation and a lot of the market coming out of countries that are not the US and maybe even countries that aren't in Europe. And so I think fascinating this valuation of $5 billion. I'm sure that Ola Electric is not really targeting consumers who are going to be in Los Angeles, for example, but more so really thinking about how they sell two-wheelers and three-wheelers and do so at different price points and for maybe a slightly different market and consumer than some of the companies that we're seeing here. Similarly to that, James, there are two other companies I wanted to mention that are in Brazil and Taiwan, respectively. So Vammo is a Brazilian company that's building out battery swapping infrastructure for Latin America's motorcycle riders. We've started to see this a lot where it's really, really important when you have especially, privately owned micromobility options that there is actually battery swapping stations that are available, particularly for people who are also using their micromobility options, the two-wheelers and three-wheelers for their jobs. So in Brazil, what's kind of cool is that the grid is 85% renewable. So when you talk about putting this battery swapping infrastructure in, a lot of the times people are worried like, okay, electric mobility, not actually good for the environment because the grid itself that's powering the devices is so dirty. But in the case of Brazil, it is actually renewable electricity. And so I think this is a win-win in terms of both environment and mobility. And Vammo is actually going to be at Micromobility Europe. So folks who are listening can also check them out. And then the final part of this, James, is that there's a Taiwan-based company called Gogoro, and they are expanding a partnership that they have with BikeBank. They're going to be doing battery swapping stations as well. And their market is South Korea. So they're bringing these battery swapping stations to 7 additional cities in South Korea. And all of this is making me like wonder and wish for battery swapping stations, like let's just say in LA, but also in the rest of the cities in the US. So James, I don't know, are you seeing battery swapping stations near you? Is that like even when you were in New York or when you were in Paris, did you see battery swapping stations?
No, I didn't. I think Gogoro is a really interesting company. We've profiled quite a bit. Vammo, as you mentioned, will be in Europe, and they're coming up too. This again is just another. I know we talked to Tora from Juice a couple of weeks ago. He talked a lot about the innovation you see in battery swapping, battery sharing, battery storage in Southeast Asia that you don't really see here in the U.S. And Tora's response a couple weeks ago was, of course, this is going to come to the U.S. And his point specifically was more about safety and storage of batteries outside versus having them inside. So this will be really a one to watch, as you mentioned, Julia, like one that it looks like this innovation is not coming out of the U.S. And although there does appear to be at least a use case as it relates to safety and fires, but there could be use cases as it relates to convenience, affordability, and some other things. So definitely one to watch. And again, these companies appear to be doing really good. So that's exciting.
Yeah, definitely exciting. And I think there's an aspect of this too. I would agree that's about safety and safety of the batteries. Like I just putting on my city policy making hat, I can remember having conversations with the fire department about battery anythings or, mobile charging or even just figuring out how you would do charging or battery storage within a building itself. And it was always just a giant nightmare with like trying to figure out how the regulations should change. I know, like the F word, it's terrible. Anyways, it was a nightmare because you were trying to like convince people that this is actually a problem that you should try to solve rather than a problem you should try to avoid. Which is like the perpetual challenge of being in city government. But in any case, I do hope things like the battery swapping stations will happen in the US. Would be really, really interesting, would probably help open up the market a bit more and would complement some of what we're seeing in terms of the charging stations that are being rolled out by like Lyft and others on the shared micromobility side. So James, just bringing us back to the US, piece of good news is that the U.S. Bureau of Transportation Statistics. So, James, final topic on my end before you launch into launches is about Amsterdam. So, in Amsterdam, they have all of these low-speed microcars. You know these things, right? You've seen them around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, and they generally like in Amsterdam, you've got a lot of bike lanes that are actually like on the sidewalk. Or they're adjacent to the road, but they're like small and they're kind of separated from the road. And the low speed microcars actually run in those bike lanes, which I think is super weird because it's like, kind of like a mixing and matching of like bikes and cars. But anyways, in Amsterdam, low speed microcars have been around for decades. They're really amazing for people with disabilities in particular. But they're going up and up in terms of their numbers. And now there's a debate about whether they belong in the bike lane, the car lane, or whether Amsterdam should in fact have a new third lane. So James, what do you think?
I mean, I think we have the same problem in the U.S. with so much of the work being done around, microcars here, which, call golf carts and neighborhood electric vehicles and things like this. I don't think they should be in the bike lane. I think that's just going to cause a lot of issues. I think the broader it is, how much can we slow down the roads? In Amsterdam's a good example, or in here in the U.S., to allow for micro cars to have routes where they can get around that aren't that would allow them to ride in a normal road. So clearly you can't bring a microcar on the highway, and we shouldn't lower the speed on the highway to allow for that. But in communities, can we, even in Amsterdam, in what is a very dense area where people really shouldn't be driving fast, can we lower the speeds enough to allow for microcars to be in the regular lane? I think that's where my head is. And even where I live here in Southern California, we've been doing a lot of work to lower the speeds because a lot of people actually like to ride these microcars to like school for the kids. And so, we're working on 15 mile per hour speed limits around, like within a half mile circumference of the school. And so I think that's the answer, is to probably keep them out of smaller lanes, like for bikes and peds, but lower the road speeds. That's where that's where I net on this.
Interesting. I mean, another idea we have is just have a fast lane, have everything else be slow and then have a fast lane. Cause like, I love how James, you represent the dad perspective, like let's keep everybody at 15 miles per hour. There are kids out there. And I'm like, I'm going to get on an electric motorcycle. I'm going to be going 75 miles per hour. So it's a good comparison.
75 miles per hour.
But I mean, to your point though, like I think what we could maybe both agree on is like, instead of every lane being a fast lane, we should just like have like one fast lane and everything else is a slow lane.
Well, the problem there, I mean, not to get into this too much, but like you can't have a fast lane on a 2-lane road, right? Which is the majority of roads in urban areas, right? You don't have 4-lane roads to divvy up that space.
I mean, have you been to LA? Part. Yeah.
Well, sorry, LA, not Amsterdam, but yeah, LA. Maybe.
Yeah.
That is true. Which would be interesting. But yeah, like, so the data is wild, right? So at 15 miles per hour, your chances of dying when you're struck in a traffic violence situation by a vehicle is 10%. If you get up to 26 miles per hour, I think it is, your chances of dying is like 37% or something. And then I think if it gets up to 36, it's 50%. So it's 5 times as likely to die from a vehicle incident. So, 1 in 10 people could die at 15 miles per hour. 5 in 10 people are dying at 36 miles per hour. And you have to check me on that exactly, whether that's serious injury or death. But it's basically 5 times more likely to either have a serious injury or a death at that speed limit difference. And so it's like it's an interesting thing to ask yourself, like in roads that are not highway roads, what's the trade-off on someone going 15 versus someone going 35? It's going to take much longer, no question. But we also know, like, when you speed and you have not collisions, you cause traffic jams, which is ultimately what slows you down even more. So, I think it's really interesting to think about this idea that we will have more microcars as we have more big cars too, and maybe the great equalizer is speed regulations. So yeah, have your big car, have your small car. You can only go this speed, which makes it so that the small car most likely won't get run over.
Interesting. Yeah. All right. Well, I can't have this conversation with you without you having a safety vest on. So next time we're gonna have to redo that.
I missed it.
I know. We missed the intro.
Okay,
James, take us to launches.
I will. Yeah. So let's launch. The one thing I want to say on launches, Julia, is we have a lot of launches next week with Micromobility Europe. So I'm not going to talk about as many vehicles this week because of, we're basically under the embargo of knowing some really cool stuff coming out next week. So I would expect more at Micromobility Europe. And then, of course, when you and I come back and are able to have another show, we'll talk about a lot of launches that we saw at Micromobility Europe. Hopefully, with like some photos and stuff and some maybe some live video, Julia.
Videos.
And actually riding some of these vehicles. So yeah, before we bring it, I also wanted to say we're bringing on the founder and CEO of Magnum Bikes, which is an awesome company here in the U.S. Right after we go through these launches really quickly. So first and foremost, like in the launch category, which unfortunately they won't be later next week, but Porsche has made quite a stir this week. One with a partnership with Yadia, who makes a really cool commuter scooter, Chinese-based company, who has teamed up with Porsche to come out with what they call the F200, which can go much faster, but based on the regulations in China, will have basically 14.7 horsepower and you can go from 0 to 30 in about 2.5 seconds. It's a sexy, sleek scooter, and it's just cool to see a Chinese scooter company teaming up with Porsche. Porsche also announced their own electric mountain bike, which is not something I would expect from Porsche, but that's interesting. It's called the EXT. It's quite a high-end bike, which you might expect from Porsche as well. Julia, any sense what you believe the MSRP would be on this Porsche mountain bike?
Oh my God, it's got to be high, like 4.5. Wait, a motorbike? Is that a motorcycle?
Nope. No, it's a mountain bike. This is
Oh, it's a mountain
electric
bike.
mountain bike.
$7,500?
$15,000.
What?
Yeah.
What?
So
I could get a small house in
I mean, Julia, I know you got Prada and Gucci and
Iowa.
everything, but I don't
Yes.
think you're going for the electric mountain bike in the $15,000 range. I could be wrong though. But yeah, pretty wild price. And then the one other vehicle announcement I wanted to give a shout out to, Julia, in the spirit of microcars, which we're talking about, is Fiat. Fiat has released what they call the Topolino Mini EV, which is sort of the next evolution of the Citroen Ami, which is, of course, the really cool, popular small car that you unfortunately can't really buy here in the US. It's not considered a car, and it's not really considered a golf cart for whatever reason. I'm not quite sure what's up with US federal regulations, why they don't import them, because I think they'd be very popular. But this new Topolino is like super cute, super cool. It's got these doors that are like sort of like thick rope, like a velvet rope almost, that you kind of sit in, and that are open aired. But yeah, that's a really cool vehicle, and I'm hoping we see quite a few new small microcars, golf cart type vehicles next week out at Micromobility Europe. Any thoughts on those, Julia?
I mean, all of this sound really cool. I love this. The luxury car companies getting into scooters, motorbikes, like mountain bikes. I actually kind of wonder if there's like some executives at Porsche or maybe some designers at Porsche who just love biking and maybe have decided to do this as like a pet project. And finally, they were able to, team up with a strategy team and like show the numbers to the, decision makers, whatever, just say like, we got to do this. We're like falling on the market. There's an opportunity for us here. But yeah, I'm like hoping to see it. I think honestly, in my mind, for all of these like micromobility options, what you just want is a bigger spread, like some options that are going to be at the lower end of the spectrum from an affordability perspective, and honestly, some options that are going to be at the higher end of the spectrum, because you want to try to get the broadest base of customers possible. So I don't know, sounds cool. Like, why don't all of them come to Micromobility Europe? Is not every one of the companies that you just mentioned is coming to Micromobility Europe?
I think they'll be attending. I don't like it. Porsche's not exhibiting, as an example. I know we have some
Porsche
people from
next
Fiat
time.
coming as well.
Yeah.
Well, again, but like we talked about last week, I think any of these guys that are just doing it as a pet project, they're not going to win. These companies that are native, like we'll talk to Yoni here in a second, like they're just going to smoke them because they're all there.
Yes.
And,
yeah. Or there's going to be just like I was going to say bloodbath. That doesn't sound right. There's just going to be like a fun fest of mergers and acquisitions. That could be cool too.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Julia. Well, let's bring up Yoni Kayman, the founder and CEO of Magnum Bikes.
Hey guys.
Hi, Yoni.
Hey, Yoni. How are you?
Doing well.
Great. Well, so Yoni Kayman, the founder and CEO of Magnum Bikes, an awesome bike company here, located here in the United States. Yoni, where are you in the world right now, though?
So right now I'm actually in Israel. I got into the e-bike space in 2010, so I'm like considered a dinosaur. It wasn't really a thing in the US. I grew up in New York, but I was overseas in Israel, and it became a thing here. So I was like, very early on I saw it, and I was like, this is the future. That's really where
Yeah, so we have I have some friends, I think Julia does as well, like that live in Tel Aviv, and they send me photos all the time. Tell me, of course, how micromobility has just taken over in Tel Aviv. Are you in Tel Aviv?
No, I'm in Jerusalem. I have had some shops in Tel Aviv, but and my office in Tel Aviv, but I live in Jerusalem with my family. Back and forth on our business is located in Salt Lake City, Utah, which is beautiful outdoor space and perfect for biking and everything to do with the outdoors. But yeah, so I'm back and forth.
Great. And how do I'd be curious how you think about sort of your global strategies. Like, how do you think about market share in Israel versus market share in the U.S. as one example? I'm just curious.
You know, it's interesting. Israel is a very small country. It's about the size of New Jersey. So, geographically, it's not massive. However, the adoption rate of micromobility here is way beyond anything, as far as as far as how people have accepted it and how many people are just making it a part of their lives. I would say every maybe fifth bike, if you're in Tel Aviv, you'll see a Magnum bike. So we have a pretty good.
Wow. Okay.
That's amazing.
I mean, we're pretty much a nice brand. So we started on very early, and we've had many, many years of customers that are buying and using our products.
Yeah. Are you guys still the largest e-bike seller in Israel? Is that right?
I mean, as far as the brand, as far as a recognized brand for e-bikes, yes. There are, many facets to the industry where lots of many companies will come in and just try to kind of get a price point or buy the market share with a much lower price point and a cheaper product that kind of woos the customer in. I think it's valuable because I think I call it the gateway e-bike, right? But as far as a brand and as far as the value and what we stand for and what we, how much we invest in our product and so on, absolutely, our brand is right at the top. Not number one, maybe number two.
Gotcha. And how do you think about the United States in terms of the importance of the market for you here?
Well, the United States is our main business. Like I said, we're located in Salt Lake City. We sell to shops across the country. We have a couple of our own shops as well as an online, e-commerce presence. But our primary focus is the dealer network. One of the things that I really believe in is that an e-bike is not just another piece of electronics, like a commodity that you can just sell and go on Amazon and buy and shop for the best price for that specific product. It's something that really needs to come along with reliability, with product support, with customer support, with a brand that's really focused on investing into the product to make sure that the experience is an enjoyable experience. That's really what it's all about. We're not necessarily selling the metal, we're selling the experience that goes behind it and the beauty and the impact that it really has on our life and then the world around us. So there's got to be a strong company standing behind it if you want to have that experience and you don't want it to be tainted.
Yep. And I'm down here in Southern California. I've been to one of your stores, Magnum, in Encinitas, right on the Coast Highway. You've got that beautiful little store. I met your team, and we actually rode a bunch of vehicles around before. Shot a bunch of videos, and I really like that experience. I'm curious how much, let's fast forward a couple of years, how much around the U.S. are we looking at Magnum having their own stores all around the U.S. versus it sounds like distribution partners are very important to you. Of course, it seems like DTC is also a channel. Like, how do you weigh those? Which one is the most important? How will that maybe change?
That's a great question. I think a lot of businesses are, struggling with or trying to find a balance, especially with, the explosion of e-commerce, particularly, throughout COVID when people just couldn't go anywhere. Like digitally, companies have advanced ages, the expedited advancement of the digital platform for the company. For us, we definitely are an omni-channel. I believe that the value of the shops is extremely high, and particularly for the customer experience, as I said before. We do want, we do have our own shops, and we have a kind of a new business model that we're testing out, taking over some other shops, and not necessarily a franchise, but more of a partnership kind of model. And I think it's really important for us to have the direct to consumer experience, even if it's, through a dealer, but to understand the customer, to understand the customer's thought process, to understand the needs of the customer. So that's really important, to really be in touch with, as opposed to just be a manufacturer that's sending product somewhere and then hoping that the shop knows how to deal with the customer and so on. Like, we really are trying to
Sure.
be in tune with customer.
Yeah. And I want you to say more about that, Yoni. That's really interesting to me because one of the things that struck me as you were talking about how, you sell bikes is that you sell it just like through these different channels. So I won't ask you how much you sell, like what percentage of your sales come through each of those channels, because that sounds like something you're not going to share with us, right?
Um,
I'm just testing. I'm testing you. Oh, are you going to
Waters is
share? Okay,
good,
tell us, Yoni. Yeah, let's see. Let's see. How
Yeah, I mean, I'm
what
definitely
percentage of your
majority.
sales comes through
A
each of these
large
channels?
majority of our sales come through our dealer network. Um, you know, More than
Okay.
60%.
Okay. Interesting. All right.
So for sure.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
good.
and we really, like I said,
Okay. So then this franchise
it's
model.
really important.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I don't
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't think the franchise model is a good model. If just to kind of
Yeah.
pick up on the franchise word, I don't like it at all.
We're done with franchises. We're going to call it something else. Okay. So this new model, this partnership model, it sounds like what you're trying to get at is like you need more insights about your customers and you also need more control about over their experience of actually buying the bike and becoming like a Magnum customer rather than just like an e-bike owner. Is that right? Okay.
Staying,
What are you finding? Yeah.
and we want to, a lot. What I'm finding is that a lot of the dealers are, for better, for lack of a better term, mom and pop shops where they're kind of single owned shops. And some of them are very passionate, which is fantastic. Passion, I think, is the key to really driving success in any area in life. But a lot of them just don't have experience or knowledge of that's necessary to really run an efficient and good business, well-rounded business. I think that we can, help, and we do help and support our dealers with a variety of tools, not just our partners, but even just dealers that are selling multiple brands and so on and so forth. We're going to be there to advise them of how they should get out into the market, how they should announce themselves, what kind of local partnerships they should make, what kind of local shows they should visit, what the answers that they need to explain to the customer, and convince them that it's just not worth it to buy a really cheap, or low end bike online that you might just never hear back from the seller, or never be able to get the support that you need. So there are a lot of different aspects of the business and different facets, as well as just financial, perspective, the proper financial perspective. We're relatively, I would say a mid-sized company with a lot of experience, good people, high-level people, and we have a lot to offer for our dealer network as well.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating and something that you seem to be at the beginning of the trend towards, which is just wanting to own the customer experience a bit more, whether it's like the initial sale or whether it's the maintenance of the bike or whether it's just, making them proud to be like a Magnum bike owner, member. I don't know what you want to call it, but yeah, basically create this ecosystem. So I know we're getting close to the end of the time we have here, Yoni, and I'm going to ask you a question that James doesn't like for me to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyways. James is like, do I have to keep doing this?
Don't worry, I just cut it out, Yoni. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
But we do it every week.
Control the edits. Yeah. So Yoni, if you weren't gonna buy if your bike couldn't be your favorite bike, like if Magnum bikes, you're not allowed to have that be your favorite bike, what other e-bike would you purchase?
What other e-bike would I purchase? Ooh, good question. I would probably, I'm a pretty aggressive rider. So I like bulls and high bike kind of style, although that's not a mainstream kind of e-bike. I just like hopping on and off sidewalks, on and off gravel and grass and, trail and so on. The majority, I would say, a vast majority of people are looking at e-bikes to really kind of replace bicycles and really get them out. Most people that ride regular bicycles are either like professional kind of or athlete style, racers or mountain bikers, right? Your average person is not going to ride a regular bicycle anymore, or children ride regular bikes. But the second you get to like, 20, 30, 40, like regular bikes are a little bit more, difficult. You can't go such distances. You can't, unless you're, in really good shape, which in that case, I would still suggest you get an e-bike and go even further. But, but the majority of people really just ride it for either commuting or for leisure. I love the mountain biking type of experience. I love bulls. I think high bike was more of like a trailblazer in that area. And yeah, so I would probably choose between one of those.
That's great, Yoni. And so two quick things for you. So one, you chose Salt Lake City, which is very interesting. Clearly, we're here in California. We see a ton of e-bike manufacturers, micromobility manufacturers here in California. I think you made a conscious decision to go to Utah for reasons that I've heard you talk about in the past, which is really cool. You are in a red state, and so much of micromobility is dominated by blue states. One of the goals we've had is really trying to make sure that red states understand the value of micromobility vehicles, and of course we try to do our best to get politicians from both sides of the table to come on and adopt it. What do you see as trends in Utah, and anything happening that's really cool there that you'd want to highlight that maybe we don't see in coastal communities?
Sure. So what's beautiful about e-biking, maybe sports in general, but nature and the values that e-biking stands for, sustainability and green, commuting and micromobility in general, it does cross the aisle. So I don't think that there is really a red or blue, although there are, the Democratic Party clearly has pushed the agenda for climate change and for climate, protecting our climate and so on, more forward. But every Republican would love to ride an electric bike as well. Again, it's the experience and it's the beauty of it. And in Salt Lake City specifically, there is an issue with air quality. There definitely is a focus both on the state level as well as the local city level as improving the air quality. We are doing a program with UCare right now, which is very exciting, with a bike voucher.
Are you involved in the Zoom Go initiative incentive program as well?
That is in the works. That hasn't actually been launched yet. We have been in touch with them, absolutely. UCare is a big partner to help promote air quality, the improvement of the air quality, and they're partnering with us right now with a number of other partners and sponsors that are going to really make it much more accessible and easier for people and subsidized, for people in Salt Lake City, which the majority of the people in the state really, like that's the biggest place of, where people live in Utah, even though it's a big state, but Salt Lake City and the greater Salt Lake City area is where most people live. But if you come to Salt Lake City, you will see a ton of micromobility, a ton of bike lanes, very wide streets, tons of scooters, tons of e-bikes, regular bikes. There's like a weekly bike ride that, the 999 ride. There's just tons of stuff out there. And it, like I said, it really crosses all colors. It's not red or blue.
Yeah, no, it's great to hear. And it's something that we are super adamant on because everyone should ride. We talk about 5 billion people in the world riding. So it's not political in nature. So I love that you're spearheading in Utah, and I kind of keep up the great work, because I actually was in Salt Lake City a couple weeks ago. I saw a lot of Magnums around, which is super cool. Yoni, we have to go, but we need to have you back on because we didn't get a chance to talk about your vehicles, of which I know a lot of. We've covered a lot of your vehicles over time. So we'll have you back on at some point to talk about all your vehicles.
I love your emails. I subscribe and I stay up to date in a lot of ways. Through the micromobility platform that you've created, which is awesome. And I'd love to be back on. And like I said, I have a lot of experience. I have over 13 years of experience in the e-bike industry, both in Europe, overseas, and in the US. So I'd love to get another chance to kind of talk things through. And Julia, I think it was actually a good question. I don't know why James doesn't like that question of yours.
Thanks, Yoni. You're welcome
job,
to come
Yoni.
back on from my perspective too. Well, Yoni, awesome to meet you. Awesome to meet you. And James, incredible to be able to do this with you.
Thanks so much. Keep up the great work, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Yoni. All right.
Julia, we're out of time. Ride on. Have a great rest of your week. I'll see you in Amsterdam in a couple of days.
Yeah, for rock climbing.
For rock climbing, absolutely.
And like a conference or something that we're doing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Riding something. See you later. Ride on.
All right. Bye, James. Ride on.